it sounded like everything started to come through like a tunnel or like a tube. I always describe it as like speaking through like a PVC pipe or something like that. If you ever did that when you were a child or something, like
Mhm.
a little long distance, a little different than a paper towel. It felt like it was a little bit longer distance and a little bit more echoey. So the TV was on and it sounded like it was coming through this like pipe or tube. And then I saw this clear circle of vision on the TV screen, and everything else was kind of like stretched out around it. And I guess the best way I describe it is if you've ever seen Star Trek and like the ship takes off and the stars kind of like spread back into lines. It was like that, but I didn't feel any.
All right. Greetings, everyone. Thank you for being here. I am Sharon Sananda Kumara. Welcome to Ascension Gateway. And today I'm really excited. My guest is Tia Renee. Hi, Tia.
Hi, Sharon. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here with you today.
Oh, well, thank you for being here. We recently had a conversation on your podcast, your YouTube channel, and we'll share that, of course. And yeah, I just felt a kinship with you as we chatted, and you have an amazing story to tell as well. So heartbreakingly amazing, I guess I should say. Yeah. So I'm going to read a little bit about Tia, and then we'll get into her sharing her story here. Okay, or some of her story, some of your story. All right. Tia Renee has been on a journey of spiritual awakening and transformation for the past 20 years. Her life took a tragic turn when her husband was murdered and he passed away. She shared in his and as he passed away, sorry, and as he passed away, she shared in his death experience. Wow. This profound event opened the door to a world beyond the physical realm for her as she began to have out of body experiences and found solace in near death experiences. These spiritually and transformative experiences have continued to shape and guide her, providing her with comfort and a deeper understanding of the interconnectedness of all things. And your YouTube channel is called, remind me again.
It's just Tia Renee.
Tia Renee. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. And you have a Facebook group.
I do have a Facebook group. It's near death experience accounts with Tia Renee.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. So, yes, I'm so sorry about your husband. And gosh, that's horrible. Can you share your journey with us, please, from wherever you want to start?
Sure, yeah. And well, I guess I'll go back a little bit before what happened in 2002. I had a dream, a strange dream, where I was in a dark city. There was light I could see and everything like that, but it just seemed dark. And I had this deep, deep despair in my heart. And I was in a restaurant sitting across from a man. I don't know who it was. It felt like I was on a date or something like that. And it felt weird. And I had, like I said, this deep shadow over my heart. It was like my heart had blackened. It hurt so bad. It was just such a deep despair. And I was wondering, why do I feel like this? Why this is so miserable? Why is this here? And then it started to dawn on me. I was like, wait a minute, wasn't I married? And then I was like, I was married to a man named Terry. Where is Terry? And then I woke up, and then about 2 weeks before everything happened, around 2 weeks, I don't remember exact time frames, but shortly before whatever happened to him happened, that dream came back to me. It was always kind of in the back of my mind. It was one of those dreams that stayed with you. It like haunted you, right? It was always there. I felt like it was always there, kind of in the back of my mind, and it would come up once in a while. But shortly before this happened to him, it came back intensely, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. And I asked him, have you ever had a dream that just, it won't leave you alone? You can't stop thinking about it. And he said, yes, he had had a dream recently where, and he was an atheist, where he had dreamed something about Christmas and Santa Claus, and he thought that maybe there was something more to like Christmas than he had thought. Maybe there was something more, um, and he was questioning his atheism.
Mm.
That was a dream that he had shortly around the same time that we were having this discussion. Because I do remember him waking me up one day, or not waking me up, but the next day telling me about his dream and how weird it was for him. Um, so he said, yeah, that was a dream that just wouldn't leave him either. And so kind of brushed it off and we went about our lives. So we found out my dad had stomach cancer one day. And 3 days later, we had like a little mini family reunion. Everybody came out to see my dad, just to, spend some time with him and encourage him in his fight of his cancer fight. So we lived in Las Vegas. Um, and I hadn't seen my brother in a very long time. And we got a room down on the strip in the same hotel as my brother. And we spent the day with him and his wife, my husband and I. And, we were just doing like the Vegas thing, right? Walking around, sitting at bars, maybe playing a couple slot machines, having a few drinks, whatever, looking at the little shows and stuff that they have. Just hanging out. It was a lot of fun to spend some time with my brother. And my parents were watching my boys, and they had decided that they were going to head back closer to their house. So I went to my room. We all went to my room. Um, I stayed there with the boys, and I had been arguing with my husband all day.
Mm.
Not really arguing, just ignoring. I was being incredibly rude to him. If he put his arm around me, I would just kind of like slide away from him. I wasn't talking to him all day. And I think, I was under a lot of stress about my dad's cancer and I was taking it out on him, which there's no excuse for that. Don't ever treat your loved ones like that because you never know what's going to happen. He was 30 years old and I was 26. I would have never in a million years thought that that would be the last day I get to spend with him.
Mm.
And I felt guilty about that. And so I told him, go ahead and go back out with my brother, have a good time. It was starting to get dark and, the night things were happening in Vegas. And I wanted him to just go and have a good time with my brother. And that was like my way of apologizing to him. I gave him a hug and told him I was sorry. And thank God I did that because that was the last time that we would ever look into each other's eyes, right? Um, so I went down to the oxygen bar because we had, had a few drinks and spent the day out, kind of partying a little bit. So I went down, I took my boys and we went down to where they have an oxygen bar and I was doing that. And it's like funny because it's kind of like, they put the oxygen tube in your nose like they do in a hospital.
Mm.
So I was sitting there and my sister-in-law comes up and she taps me on the shoulder and she's like, you have to go right now. Terry's been hurt. Rob's on the phone. Rob is my brother. And she gave me her phone and I was talking to my brother and I thought, oh, he hurt his hand or maybe he, I don't know, fell down or something, whatever. I didn't think there was going to be anything serious that happened to him. And this was less than a half hour after they left. It happened, like, I guess, as they were walking out of the casino that we were in. Um, and so she's pushing me, like, towards the door, like, hurriedly. And I'm asking my brother, is he okay? And he says, I don't know. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't know? Like, you're with him, right? You know he's okay. How do you not know? And he just kept saying, I don't know. And so, like, I started getting pretty frantic. Like, how do you not know if he's okay? Like, did he break his pinky, like, or his thumb? Is his whole hand broken? Maybe then, maybe then he wouldn't be okay. Of course, he'd be in a lot of pain. But I'm starting to get frantic because he's not telling me much. And I find him in the next casino over, and we go outside and there's this little paved area. There's no cars there. I don't know what it really was, but there was an ambulance there, like, I don't know, a little ways away, 1,000 feet or something like that, 300 yards, I don't know, off in the distance a little bit. And so it wasn't like right up next to us. And I felt like we were just waiting there forever. And I kept asking my brother, what happened? Is he okay? And he wouldn't really tell me anything. And so we were just kind of like sitting there in silence. And I'm sitting on the curb at this point, and then I see them um, wheel my husband by on a stretcher. They're coming over to the ambulance, and I jump up and I yell out his name, and I'm expecting him to like give me a thumbs up. That's something he would have done, or at least look at me. And he didn't even move. And so I'm like, well, what's going on? Like, I can't get any answers from anybody. Nobody can tell me if he's okay. And is he even conscious? Like, he's not even giving me a thumbs up because he never wanted me to, be worried about anything. And so I ran over to the ambulance, and one of the paramedics is pushing me back, and he says, you can't come with us. You're too frantic. You're going to have to take a cab. So my brother went in the ambulance with them, and I took a cab. And on the way over, I'm calling everybody, my parents and his parents and his brothers lived there, my sister. We were a very close family. So everybody moved to Las Vegas when we moved there. A lot of our family moved there. So I called everybody and asked them to please come to the hospital. So I got to the hospital and people were arriving and nobody really knew anything, and we were waiting in the lobby for hours and hours. Um, then they took us into this little room off the hallway, down the hall a little bit. And it was this little tiny room, and there were so many of us. We were like really packed in there like sardines. And um, the doctor, I guess it was a doctor, came in and said that my husband had sustained some brain damage. It was pretty severe, and that they might need to do surgery. Um, and I lost it. Like, then I was like, okay, yeah. Now I understood why my brother couldn't tell me if he was okay. Um, and what happened was he was attacked by a homeless person, and knocked out, and he was beaten severely, and he hit his head on something, and I still don't know all the details. That's all I know. So they let me go look at him, and I wouldn't have even recognized him. He was so bruised and battered, and if they didn't say that was my husband, I wouldn't have believed them. Um, so anyways, he ended up being on life support. They didn't ever do surgery. Um, and he was on life support for 5 days. On the third day, I had been staying in the hospital, and I was sleeping in this chair that they had in the room. It was a teaching hospital, and there was a lot of activity, students and doctors in and out all the time. Um, the lights always on. It was an urgent care, or the trauma unit. And if you remember when Siegfried and Roy, one of them got attacked by a tiger in Vegas, it was at that same time we were in the same hospital, because I saw in the same unit. I saw it was either Siegfried or Roy, I can't remember which one. He would walk by, and he would look in the room and smile and give like a nod of encouragement. And he bought our whole family pizza one night. He was really nice.
Oh,
So on the third day, I was really tired and exhausted and completely frazzled, that I thought I would, sleeping in this chair, I wasn't getting any rest. I thought that I would go to my brother-in-law's house and sleep. And so I went to his house, and I started feeling dizzy, and it was pretty severe. I'd never felt dizzy like this before. I like had to grab the wall to steady myself when I was walking. And then it happened twice, and then the third time it happened, I was sitting on the couch, and it sounded like everything started to come through like a tunnel or like a tube. Like I always describe it as like speaking through like a PVC pipe or something like that. If you ever did that when you were a child or something, like
Mhm.
a little long distance, a little different than a paper towel. It felt like it was a little bit longer distance and a little bit more echoey. So the TV was on and it sounded like it was coming through this like pipe or tube. And then I saw this clear circle of vision on the TV screen, and everything else was kind of like stretched out around it. And I guess the best way I describe it is if you've ever seen Star Trek and like the ship takes off and the stars kind of like spread back into lines. It was like that, but I didn't feel any movement. It was just visual. Um, so I was hearing like the tube and I was seeing this clear circle of light and the stretching around it. And then my consciousness shifted and I started to share the consciousness of my husband. Only it didn't feel like it was my husband, it felt like it was me. I
Mm.
felt like I was the one that was in the hospital bed and it was flickering back and forth as fast as a candle, faster than that. It felt like I was me and in the hospital bed, like me on the couch there and in the hospital bed all at the same time, but yet it was also flickering. I don't know how to describe it better than that. It was really a very strange sensation. Um, and my brother-in-law called his mom because I was like, I'm dying. I told him I'm dying. I think I'm dying. And he called his mom and she said, it's okay, you're just having a panic attack, breathe into a paper bag. And so everybody thought I was having a panic attack. And to this, well, up until a couple years ago, I also just wrote it off as a panic attack. But I had panic attacks since then and they were different. It was the same kind of like panicky feeling, but it wasn't where I was like sharing a consciousness or I was flickering between consciousnesses. I didn't have the echoey sounds or the weird vision either. So, anyways, what happened is, we're sharing consciousness. I feel like I am in his, maybe like I actually became him because it was me. I knew that it was me that was dying. And I could feel everyone. He had so many friends. He was a very popular person. A lot of people liked him. He was very friendly, really easy to get along with, loved everybody. And we were from the Atlanta area. And so he had 20 or 30 friends fly out immediately as soon as they heard what happened to him. So there was a lot of people in the hospital. Not only that, but more family had come as well. There was a ton of people. We had the hospital lobby full, plus we were spilling over into the hallways and everything. So I could feel all of their thoughts and their feelings and their sorrow for me. And I could,
Mm.
and they were thinking that, oh, poor her, she's gonna die. Um, she's so young, poor her. And it was for me and not for my husband. But
Mm.
I think now I think back that it was for my husband, and because I thought it was me, I was hearing, because I was actually hearing those words. I think that it was from my perspective, I was hearing poor her because I thought it was for me. So that happened. And after that, when I went back into his hotel room, his hospital room, um, he, the energy felt different. And I don't know how to, it felt empty, I guess is how I can describe it. And I was a non-spiritual person. I was Christian. I didn't know anything about energy. I didn't question anything. I never had super deep philosophical thoughts. I never thought about, who are we or what are we or, I was just very, I like to say like basic McDonald's, Mickey Mouse, American, apple pie, just traditional, basic. I never thought about anything different. So for me to have noticed that the room felt different was very strange for me. I didn't know how to explain that. but it felt different. And later on, I had learned that it is possible for people to die before their body. And he was on life support, so I feel like he had gone, and that the life support was there and was keeping his body alive. But even his body was breaking down after that day, after the experience that happened. His body, his lungs collapsed, and his body started filling up with air. His face was filling up with air, and his feet were turning, even bluer than they were. So to me, looking back, I feel like he really had died, when we had that experience. And I don't know why we shared that. Maybe because of our love for each other, or maybe he was able to share that with me somehow. I don't know. I felt like though he didn't understand what was happening either, because there was great fear and panic involved. And he had been an atheist. So I think that as he was dying, he did have some fear and panic. Um, but I know that afterwards, shortly afterwards, that all went away, because I started having other experiences after he died, and I couldn't come back to my home right away. So I stayed with my brother-in-law for I don't know how long. Um, and I had a dream about Penn and Teller. And Penn and Teller is, another Las Vegas
Mm-hmm.
entertainment duo. And they're, I think, magicians. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was sitting on a bench next to Penn and Teller, and one of them turned their head away from me, and my husband's face was in the back of their head. And it was distorted with pain, and it was so sorrowful. And it said, he said, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." And then it was over. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he was saying that I had some discussions with someone recently, and they had shared a life review with their husband who had passed, and I felt like that was what was happening. Is I was sharing in part of his life review, and he was coming back to tell me that he was so sorry for the pain that his death caused me. And that's what I think of it. I didn't know what to think of it at first, because it didn't fit into the narrative of, like, later on when I started learning about near death experience, how it's all happy and joyous. That didn't fit into that, because he was distorted with pain. But now I think it's because of the life review, because he was experiencing that pain that his death actually caused, not just me, but his family, everyone, his
Yeah.
boys. And so after I went home, I had my first very strange out of body experience, and I didn't know what this was.
Mm-hmm.
I had never even heard of the term out of body experience. And I was laying in bed. I couldn't lay in my bed, couldn't sleep in my room. So I was with my 3-year-old son. I was sleeping on his little twin bed, and he was tiny enough that we could both fit in there. And I woke up in the middle of the night, and usually you're laying on the bed with your back here. Well, I woke up and I was laying with my back here to this side of the bed. And I was like, this is strange. And then the whole room and me, myself, my body was vibrating. And it was vibrating so intensely. I never felt anything like it. And it was rocking me to, like, vibrating through me. It was like all the way through me. Every cell in me was vibrating, and it was vibrating with the room. I felt like like the room and me were vibrating together. It was weird. And the room was filled with this beautiful golden glow, and it was just gorgeous. There was sparkles everywhere, like glitter floating around in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you ever see dust and like a beam of light coming through a window, it was
Mm-hmm.
like that, but it was glitter, golden glitter in this golden light. And it was just out of this world beautiful. And I could see behind the doors, like around the door frames, light coming in from the hallway, and in the closet also, bright, really incredibly bright golden light was coming around the doors. And I didn't know what was happening. It was very strange. And then the next thing I remember is that I woke up in the morning. And I sought out a spiritual church to advise me on what was happening because I couldn't find answers anywhere else. My family didn't know, churches, they didn't know. And any feedback I got was that I had better stop doing that because I was going to go crazy, or that it was demonic in some nature. But it didn't feel that way. That wasn't the answer that resonated. I knew it was something else. Um, and people just, they didn't know. So I sought out a spiritual church to find out what was happening to me. And they told me I was having out of body experiences. And I thought they were crazy. I was like, that's not something that's real. Okay, like that's made up. Um, and so I went home and I looked on my computer. I didn't really know how to use my computer yet. This was 2003 and we had just gotten a computer a few months earlier, so I wasn't really well versed. Otherwise, I would have been looking stuff up before. So it was on my mind. I looked up out of body experience and I found there was groups of people that were having these. And there was discussion boards online about them. I think it was in Yahoo or something like that.
Mhm.
And yeah, that's what was happening to me. I was having out of body experiences. So that opened up my world. I didn't, I was like, it's different if you just like read about it. Cause like I said, the spiritual church told me what was happening and I thought they were crazy and that wasn't a real thing. And if someone just told me their story about it, I would have been like, that's, really cool. You probably need some sleep or something like that. Cause like I said, I didn't think outside the box back then. It was just very cut and dry.
Yeah.
There was Christianity, and that was all that you were supposed to believe in.
Yeah. If I could interrupt you just for a second
Yeah.
here. Yeah. Just so you can take a breath. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Wow. In regard to out of body experiences, the audience who knows me knows that I'm a traveler. And it's true, if you haven't experienced them, it's hard to imagine that someone could be able to travel that way and on a conscious level and have out of body experiences. And it's, to me, it's going within, not actually going without, but we call it an out of body if we're going within. Yeah. So yeah, that's so true. It's hard to imagine that if you're not having those experiences. And it's funny is with me, my stepdad died when I started having them, which prompted that. And I don't remember if I shared that on your channel, but I was having sleep paralysis. Okay, yeah. And the golden light, I've experienced that as well in my
Really?
dreams.
That's
Yes.
interesting.
Yes, I've experienced it twice. Once when I was in meditation and I looked down and my heart chakra was this huge bubble of golden light around me in my heart chakra, and it was golden flakes. It was just the most gorgeous thing that I can imagine. And another time I was lifted up from my body in an out of body experience, and I was surrounded by golden flakes of light, and it filled me with so much love and so much joy, and my whole being was smiling.
Yeah, it's so comforting and it's a
Mhm.
beautiful feeling.
Yeah,
I'm glad that you experienced that too, because not only does it validate my experience for me, but I like people to have those amazing experiences. They're beautiful and wonderful, and they really just shake your paradigm, make you think differently.
they do. Definitely. Yeah. What a heartbreaking story about your husband. Thank you for sharing that. I know that had to been, I mean, it's very difficult, I'm sure, to go back there. Thank you so much for sharing that. And
You're welcome. It's
yeah,
been many years, it was 20 years in October. So grief never ends. You just learn how to integrate it into your life. And if it hadn't happened, I would have never changed my life. My spiritual awakening would have never started. I wouldn't be aware of all these amazing, beautiful, mystical, magical things about our world, and I wouldn't be in the place that I am now. So, there's gifts that were buried very deep inside that took me decades to kind of chisel out, but they were there.
Yeah. Yeah. Good for you. Good for you to be able to see the silver lining, I guess you could say, right? Or the golden lining. Yeah.
The golden lining, yeah, that's right.
Totally. So you've been having other out of body experiences as well. And have you been able to communicate or be with your husband on the other side? Because that's how I was able to. Well, that was the reason, because I didn't know about out of body experiences either when I started having sleep paralysis. And I just came across something on the internet. This was in this was in 1999. So even before, then, so there was hardly anything out there. But and it says it's a good way to contact your loved ones. Out of body experiences are. So I'm just curious if you've been able to do anything like that.
So I had one out of body experience in particular where I had sleep, it started with sleep paralysis, and I was trying to get up. And I remember I was laying on my back and I was trying to sit up and I couldn't sit up, and I heard voices. Voices had woken me up. And it was like they were coming outside my front door. They were coming up the sidewalk. And I thought my dad was bringing my boys home because they had spent the night over there with my parents. And so I was like, oh man, I got to get up. He had a key to the house, but I didn't want him to come in and like I'm just still sleeping. So I'm like trying to get up. I'm trying to sit up, and then all of a sudden I start to sit up. And I remember for some reason just looking at my toenails and seeing them get closer to my face. And I was like, I am not sitting up with my body. My body, I knew my body was still laying flat and I was sitting up. And then I heard the voices. They were really excited and they said something. They either said she's up or she's out. And it was kind of like a shout, like a really excited shout. And they started running towards me. And I could hear the footsteps running. And as soon as I got to my bedroom door, I slammed back down in my body. Didn't get to see who they were or visit with them. Um, there was two voices. One of them definitely sounded like my grandma's. It was the one that I could hear a little better. Like I said, didn't see them. I don't have any validation or anything like that it was my grandma because I didn't see her, but it sounded like her, and it was a male voice too. So I kind of think that it was maybe my grandma and my husband. Um, but I don't know for sure. But other than that, like I haven't had any near death or out of body experiences where I had direct communication with my husband. I did see him in other ways,
Mm.
like in physical. Like I spent the day with Dr. Moody, and got to go into his psychomantium at his house, and nothing happened to me in his psychomantium. But then I went home and I made like a makeshift psychomantium in my bedroom since I couldn't
What's a
use it anymore.
psychomantium, if you don't mind me?
Okay, so a psychomantium is it's a type of mirror gazing, and Dr. Moody did a lot of research on it, and I think he goes over it in the book Life After Life, which was the
Mm.
first book that I read of Dr. Moody's, and it's his psychomantium was like a mirror, and it's angled up at the ceiling so you can't see any reflections out of it, and it's in a dark room with just like a tiny little light. And I think in his psychomantium he had like what was equal to maybe like a little nightlight or something like that, and you would sit in front of the mirror and look into it, and there was no reflection. It was angled so you couldn't see yourself or anything really in the reflection, with just that little light. And you would some people are able to see their loved ones come out of the mirror, actually not just a reflection of them, but actually come out of the mirror and
Mm.
be able to communicate with them. Well, I had this experience in my makeshift psychomantium that I made at home. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't completely dark. It was in my bedroom. I had windows with just blinds. Um, and I had angled the mirrors up towards the ceiling so you could see the ceiling fan, but I couldn't see my own reflection. But I would do that on a daily basis to see if I could see my husband, and I did one day. He
Wow.
came through, and it was like no defining characteristics. I just felt that it was my husband. It was a shadow figure, like a humanoid shadow figure, and it came out of the mirror and floated above me like wispy, kind of like light gray smoke, kind of like. And it reached down. I don't want to say it,
Yeah,
he reached down and touched my arm, and I could feel that. And I got goosebumps all over my whole body. Um,
that's
so yeah,
amazing.
that was the only time that I was able to use the psychomantium to see him. But I did. I was successful that one time.
Wow.
So that was really remarkable and life changing for me as well.
Sure. Wow. Okay, I'm gonna have to build a psychomantium now.
Dr. Moody goes over it in detail, I think, like in that book, Life After Life, if you
You know,
want to get that.
yeah, I read that book 30 years ago, I guess, or whatever, but at that time it was like you, one of the first books I read.
Mhm.
And I don't remember that about the psychomantia. Maybe it was something that I didn't want to know about at that time because I was raised Christian, Catholic, and didn't have any spiritual background when it came to energy or, you know, what what we're really all about, other than you live, you die, and you go to heaven or hell. You're born in sin, you live, and hopefully, you're not being punished when you die. That's kind of what we were taught, which didn't make any sense to me. So I wasn't a very good Catholic, but yeah.
Well,
I'm sure at that time, if I would have read something about a psychomantium, it probably would have scared the crap out of me.
and I might be wrong. Maybe that's not the book. I think he actually has a newer book out that's just about the psychomantium. So
Oh,
that was
okay.
probably a better book if you're interested in the psychomantium. But it might have been one
I'm
of his other
always
books.
I'm always interested. I'm also a paranormal investigator, and I do all that kind of stuff and get all kinds of great photos and recordings, EVPs. I have tons of EVPs and photos, and my sister and I get lots of crazy photos. So yeah, that's right up my alley.
I did EVP. I recorded my husband's voice on EVP. I heard about it and I was on my way to work and I got up early in the morning and went out. There were still Radio Shacks back then. So there was a Radio Shack right around the corner. I went there and bought everything I needed and I got ready for work and I was going to do it that night. Uh, and then I was like, I'm going to just do it right now. I had about 5 minutes before I had to be out the door. And I sat down and I did it and I recorded his voice the very first time. It was his voice,
Nice,
no
nice.
mistaking it. The word, he said hello, and there was no mistaking that was the word he said. It didn't sound like you had to decipher anything or listen
Hmm.
hard, like clear, everything in the room and make it very silent. It was very clear, and I was amazed. I took that tape and I played it for everyone that I knew, his family, all my friends. I took it to work and played it for my coworkers. I had a friend who worked at a bar, and I would go hang out with him at the bar while he was working. And I would meet people, strangers, and I'd be like, listen, I need you to come to my car and listen to this tape. And I'm sure that everyone thought I was the biggest weirdo in the world, but to me, it was like proof of the afterlife. Like, that's the most important thing in the whole world to me, like at that point.
Yeah,
So I was really, really into that and trying to share that with others and show them, like, hey, guess what? You're not gonna
right.
die.
I think that is the most important thing in the world is to let help for people to know that we don't really die. That's the biggest lie of ever of everything,
Oh, yeah.
you know? Yeah.